Beneath your feet, there is a civilization older than humanity, older than our cities, older than our languages, older than almost every animal we think of as dominant. It has chemical weapons, underground farms, living armies, architects that build towers without blueprints, hunters with eyes like alien satellites, and creatures so strange that if they were discovered on another planet, we would call them proof of extraterrestrial life. And the most unsettling part is this: you have probably walked over this world today without noticing it. Every handful of soil may hide tunnels, eggs, jaws, sensors, battles, alliances, and lives unfolding in darkness. But how did these tiny beings become so successful? Why do they look so unlike us? And what are they doing down there that keeps the world above us alive? I'm Nathan Wild, and few things fascinate me more than the small, hidden creatures that make our planet feel almost alien when we finally look closely. At first glance, an insect seems simple: small body, 6 legs, a pair of antennae, maybe wings, maybe a hard shell, something to avoid, brush away, or ignore. But that reaction is exactly why their world remains so mysterious to us. We live at the scale of trees, buildings, roads, and weather. Insects live in a universe of grains of sand, drops of water, vibrations through leaves, invisible chemical trails, and landscapes where a fallen apple can become an entire continent. To enter their world, we have to shrink our imagination. A crack in the pavement becomes a canyon, a mushroom cap becomes a forest, a blade of grass becomes a tower, a rotting log becomes a city of darkness, moisture, hunger, and transformation. And somewhere inside that hidden city, an animal no larger than a seed may be making a decision that affects the soil, the plants, the birds, and eventually us. That is what makes insects so extraordinary. They are not background life. They are one of the main engines of the living planet. Scientists have described around 1 million insect species, but the true number is almost certainly much higher. Some estimates suggest millions more remain unnamed, living in forests, caves, canopies, soils, deserts, and places so ordinary that no one has thought to look carefully enough. The Smithsonian has even estimated that at any given moment, there may be around 10 quintillion individual insects alive on Earth. 10 quintillion. That number is almost impossible to feel. It is a number so large it turns the ground beneath us into something like a breathing ocean. And yet, even with all those bodies, all that movement, all that hidden activity, most of their story happens beyond human attention. The story begins hundreds of millions of years ago, when the land was still being colonized by early plants and strange arthropods. The oldest candidates for true insects come from ancient rocks more than 400 million years old, though even here scientists debate exactly what some fossils represent. That uncertainty itself is fascinating. The insect origin story begins in shadow, with fragments, mouthparts, impressions, and questions. By the Carboniferous period, winged insects were clearly present, and something revolutionary had happened. Life had learned to fly. Before birds, before bats, before pterosaurs ruled the skies, insects were already there. Imagine that ancient world for a moment. Giant forests of club mosses and horsetails, swamps stretching across warm, humid landscapes, the air richer in oxygen than it is today. And above the vegetation, enormous dragonfly-like predators moved through the air with wings that, in some fossil relatives, could span wider than a hawk. I find that thought genuinely humbling. We often talk about insects as if they are primitive, but in many ways they were pioneers. They were among the earliest animals to master the sky, to engineer societies, to transform plants, to invade nearly every environment on land. And their success comes from a body plan that looks simple only from a distance. The insect body is a masterpiece of miniature engineering. The hard exoskeleton is not just armor, it is a frame, a suit, a waterproof shield, and a surface for muscle attachment all at once. Their jointed legs allow them to climb, leap, dig, swim, grip, and sprint over surfaces that would be impossible at our size. Their antennae are not decorative, they are living instruments, reading chemicals, humidity, touch, temperature, and sometimes even the faintest movements in the air. But perhaps the most alien part of an insect is the way it breathes. We pull air into lungs. Many insects send air directly through branching tubes called tracheae, delivering oxygen deep into the body. No lungs, no red blood carrying oxygen the way ours does. Just an internal network, like a hidden forest of airways, feeding tissues from the inside. This is one of those details that changes how I look at them. An insect is not a tiny version of a mammal. It is a completely different solution to the problem of being alive. And that difference becomes most obvious when you look into their eyes. A dragonfly's eyes can contain tens of thousands of tiny lenses called ommatidia.
Instead of seeing the world as we do, through two camera-like eyes, many insects build vision from countless tiny visual units. In dragonflies, the eyes wrap around the head, creating an almost panoramic awareness of movement. To a flying mosquito or a gnat, that makes the dragonflies something close to a fighter jet with a living radar system. And this is where the insect world begins to feel less like nature and more like science fiction. A dragonfly does not merely chase prey, it predicts, it intercepts, it reads motion with such precision that tiny flying insects become targets in a three-dimensional battlefield. While we see a shimmer near a pond, the dragonfly sees vectors, speed, distance, opportunity. But the sky is only one layer of this hidden planet. Lower down, beneath leaves and stones, another kind of intelligence is at work. Not the intelligence of one mind sitting inside one skull, but something stranger. Intelligence spread across thousands, sometimes millions, of bodies. Ants are among the clearest examples. One ant can seem almost mechanical, following trails, touching antennae, carrying fragments of food. But a colony is something else entirely. A colony makes decisions. It explores, defends, relocates, farms, fights, and responds to crisis with astonishing coordination. No single ant understands the whole colony, and yet the colony behaves as if it understands the world. That may be one of the great mysteries of insect life, how simple local rules can create complex collective behavior. An ant follows a chemical trail, another reinforces it, a third responds to danger. 1,000 tiny interactions become roads, supply lines, emergency signals, and living architecture.
If you're enjoying this expedition into the hidden side of nature, join me for the next one as well. Subscribe and come along as we uncover the creatures most people never stop long enough to truly see. Some ant societies take this even further. Leafcutter ants, for example, are not simply collectors, they are farmers. Long before humans planted crops, these ants were cutting leaves, carrying them underground, and using them to cultivate fungus. The ants do not eat the leaves directly. They feed the leaves to fungal gardens, and the fungus becomes their food. This partnership is tens of millions of years old. Think about that. Deep underground, in chambers carved by insects, there are farms. Not metaphorical farms, real biological agriculture. Workers harvest plant material. Other workers tend the garden. Waste is removed. Disease is managed. The colony depends on the crop, and the crop depends on the colony. Human agriculture is roughly 10,000 years old. Ant agriculture is ancient enough to make ours look like an experiment that began yesterday. And personally, that is one of the things that amazes me most. We tend to measure intelligence by how much something resembles us, but insects challenge that completely. They solve problems without needing to look human at all. In a dark hive, honeybees perform one of the most famous communication systems in the animal kingdom, the waggle dance. A bee that has found food returns and moves across the comb in a pattern that can encode direction and distance. The angle of the dance relates to the direction of the food compared with the sun, and the duration of the waggle run carries information about distance. In the darkness, surrounded by vibration and scent, the hive receives a map written in movement.
That is almost poetic. A map without paper, a compass without a needle, a message written by a body, read by other bodies, and translated into flight.
But not every insect secret is elegant. Some are terrifying. In the leaf litter, predators hunt with patience. Assassin bugs pierce prey with needle-like mouthparts. Praying mantises wait like living traps, their forelegs folded in a pose that looks peaceful until the instant they strike. Tiger beetles chase so quickly that at moments they may need to stop and reorient because the world blurs around them. At insect scale, speed becomes monstrous. Forces change. A jump that looks small to us becomes a launch into the sky. A droplet of water becomes a drowning hazard. A spiderweb becomes an invisible wall of death. A patch of soil becomes a labyrinth where every vibration could mean prey, predator, or mate. And then there is one beetle that seems almost impossible until you understand the chemistry. The bombardier beetle carries a defensive system that has fascinated scientists for decades. When threatened, it can spray hot, irritating chemicals from the rear of its body with an audible pop. Inside specialized chambers, chemical reactions produce a boiling, noxious burst that can repel attackers. The Natural History Museum describes it as a caustic chemical cannon, and that is exactly what it feels like, a tiny animal armed with explosive chemistry. What I love about this is not just the shock of it, it is the precision. The beetle must store dangerous ingredients safely, trigger a reaction at the right moment, direct the blast, and survive its own weapon. Evolution did not design it in a single leap.
It shaped, tested, and modified living chemistry across generations until a beetle became a moving defense system. The deeper we go, the more insects stop looking like bugs and start looking like solutions. Termites are another example. To many people, they are pests, destroyers of wood, a problem in walls and houses. But in the wild, termites are engineers of soil. They break down tough plant material, move nutrients, alter soil structure, and in many tropical and subtropical ecosystems, their mounds and tunnels influence moisture, fertility, decomposition, and even plant growth. A termite mound is not just a pile of earth. It can be architecture, climate control, nursery, fortress, and digestive machine all at once. Inside, millions of small bodies maintain a living system. Some termites farm fungi. Others digest wood with the help of microbes in their guts. The colony becomes a partnership between insect, fungus, bacteria, soil, and plant material. Life recycling life. And this is the secret that many people miss. Insects are not separate from the world. They are woven into it. They pollinate flowers. They feed birds, fish, bats, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals. They clean carcasses. They break down dung. They turn dead leaves into soil. They control other insect populations. They open space for new growth. They are everywhere because ecosystems need them everywhere. Remove them, and the planet does not simply become less annoying, it becomes less alive. This is why scientists are increasingly concerned about insect declines. The picture is complicated, and not every species is declining everywhere. Some insects thrive in disturbed environments.
But many studies point to serious losses in abundance and diversity, driven by pressures such as habitat loss, agriculture, pesticides, pollution, and climate change. A major scientific review described insect decline as a problem created by many overlapping cuts rather than one simple cause. And that creates a strange emotional tension, because the creatures we fear, swat, poison, and overlook may also be the creatures quietly holding the living world together. But there is another mystery, one that is still unfolding and remains controversial. What does an insect experience? For a long time, insects were treated almost like tiny machines, stimulus and response, input and output. But the more scientists study them, the more complicated that picture becomes. Some research suggests that at least certain insects may have pain-like experiences or more complex internal states than we once assumed. This does not mean we know they feel the world the way mammals do. We do not. But it does mean the question is no longer easy to dismiss. And I'll be honest, that changes the way I look at them. A bee struggling in water, an ant carrying an injured nestmate, a fly avoiding danger, a cricket responding to harm. These moments may not prove consciousness as we understand it, but they invite humility. They remind us that small brains are not necessarily simple worlds. Then comes the transformation that feels most alien of all, metamorphosis. A caterpillar is a feeding machine.
It crawls, eats, grows, sheds its skin, and eats again. But inside that body, hidden instructions are waiting. At the right moment, the animal enters a new state. In many insects, tissues reorganize dramatically.
The crawling larva becomes something with wings, legs, compound eyes, reproductive organs, and a completely different way of moving through the world. A butterfly is not simply a caterpillar with wings added. It is the result of one life form becoming another. I have always found that astonishing. If this happened in a large animal, if a wolf dissolved into a chamber and emerged as an eagle, we would build entire mythologies around it. But because it happens in insects, in gardens and hedges and forgotten corners, we call it normal. It is not normal. It is one of the great miracles of biology. And in the second half of this hidden world, there is one idea that may be the most important of all. Insects are not just survivors of Earth's history, they are shapers of it. Flowering plants and insects changed one another over millions of years. Flowers evolved colors, scents, nectar, shapes, and timing. Insects evolved mouthparts, behaviors, senses, and bodies that could reach, sip, carry, and collect. The beauty of a meadow is not just decoration, it is negotiation, invitation, manipulation, partnership. A flower is, in part, a message to an insect, and an insect, dusted with pollen, becomes a messenger between plants. That relationship helped build the world we recognize: fruits, seeds, forests, fields, and food webs connected by wings. But insects also reveal nature's darker creativity. Parasitoid wasps lay eggs in or on other living insects, and their young develop by feeding on the host. Some fungi infect insects and alter behavior, turning bodies into platforms for spores. Ants wage wars. Beetles bury corpses. Flies find death before almost anything else does. The insect world is beautiful, but it is not gentle. At their scale, life is immediate.
Eat, escape, mate, molt, hide, defend, transform. Every surface holds danger. Every scent matters. Every vibration could be a warning. And yet, out of that harshness comes balance. The predator keeps the herbivore in check. The decomposer frees nutrients. The pollinator links flowers. The termite opens the soil. The ant turns the forest floor. The fly cleans what would otherwise rot. The beetle breaks down what larger animals leave behind. We often imagine nature as mountains, oceans, whales, wolves, and eagles. But much of nature's real labor is done by small creatures in the dark. The alien world under your feet is not alien because it came from somewhere else. It is alien because we have never truly learned to see our own planet at that scale. And maybe that is the greatest revelation. The more closely we look at insects, the less ordinary Earth becomes. A garden becomes a battlefield. A forest floor becomes a metropolis. A rotting branch becomes a nursery. A flower becomes a signal tower. A trail of ants becomes a living nervous system stretched across the ground. A beetle becomes a chemist. A bee becomes a navigator. A termite becomes an architect. A dragonfly becomes an aerial predator designed with impossible elegance. And somewhere below us, right now, life is moving. Not loudly, not dramatically, not for our attention, but constantly. I think that is what draws me back to the insect world again and again. It teaches us that wonder is not always far away. Sometimes it is not across an ocean, not deep in a jungle, not hidden in a place we may never reach. Sometimes wonder is under a stone, inside a log, beneath a leaf, or in the soil beneath our shoes. We spend so much time looking upward, searching the sky for alien worlds.
But one of them has been here all along, beneath us, around us, living beside us. And if we are willing to look closely, the smallest creatures on Earth can make our own world feel infinite. I'm Nathan Wild, and the next time you see a tiny movement in the grass, don't look away too quickly. You may be standing at the edge of a civilization.
If you want to continue this expedition, follow me into the next documentary, where we'll explore another hidden world of predators, survival, and evolution, the secret lives of the creatures that hunt in the darkness after sunset.